I do
Okay,
now.
Julie, lovely. I can hear you loud and clear. Everybody can hear us? Give us some hearts here. We all good in the room?
Yeah, I
You
can
get in
hear
there?
you.
Excellent, right? We're gonna just see if we can
Morning.
mute some microphones. Good morning, Julie. I'm just checking. JW,
Yep.
can you check whoever's got a microphone on? We can mute them, please?
Yes, everybody has been muted. We're ready to proceed.
Wonderful, thank you. All right, so here we are, Julie. I feel like we're old friends now. We've only ever met through WebLink and NVR, but won't
Yep.
shake hands in the real world. Let's do it here for just.
Let's do that.
There you go.
There we go.
Get used to that. Wonderful. Also, as a symbol of how we're getting closer and closer to really collaborating, we've had a number of talks about collaborating with your various projects and ventures, and maybe the VRARA as well. And we'd really appreciate you bringing your panel in yesterday. It's these kind of links and connections between the industries and the different players are so important. We all stand to benefit. And I personally am really interested about your talk today, cloud learning. So please give hearts and welcome and clap to Julie from the VRARA. Here we go, Julie, over to you.
Thank you so much being here. It's fun to see you again, and
Julie,
it's early morning for me here, so I took in a bit of coffee this presenting from Toronto.
okay, Julie is cutting out for me. Anybody else?
I don't know if those were claps or hearts or.
Yeah, no, Julie, your audio has been coming and going a little bit. That's what it is.
Has it? Okay.
Yeah, a little bit. Tell me
It's
what,
a little more
if you
stable now. Go ahead and proceed. Let's see how
Okay.
it works.
Can we
Listen,
work
if
something
it,
out here just quickly?
Yep.
JW, if the audio goes down and you just give the unhappy faces and you monitor that, and then give happy faces when you come back, and we try something like that,
Got it.
then that would indicate to Julie that there's a problem with the sound. So keep talking
Okay.
until you see JW's unhappy face. All right?
I got it. And
All right.
yeah, please let me know.
Absolutely.
And that's a happy face. So
That's a happy face. You're coming in loud and clear.
Exactly. That's a happy face. Yeah. Good.
All right. Love these virtual conferences. There's always those stumbling blocks at the beginning, right? So, anyways, it's great to be here, and I'm going to dive right into it. My conversation today is a unique one. It's a term that not many people know what cloud learning is, and I'm here today to talk about how education can be experienced through cloud learning. So next slide, please. So introducing myself, I play a few roles in the ecosystem, the VR and AR ecosystem. I am co-founder of Metaverse, which has been our company that we started almost 5 years ago. It's a development and consultation agency who we consult and help companies and businesses, education sectors understand the applications of the technology. I also started a company called XR Ignite, which helps XR startups, basically become prepared to do business within the XR ecosystem. So that's been a very interesting adventure. I also hold a couple of different roles on the Virtual and Augmented Reality Association. I am the co-chair of the Education Committee, as well as president of the Toronto chapter. I'm also very involved in the Student Committee, the Training Committee, and the 5G Committee. And all of those committees I've basically become part of to learn myself and understand the industry, the applications of everything going on in our world right now. And I'm adding, well, first of all, I took a role as the XR Bootcamp Advisory, trying to build out the skill sets, the talent skill sets that we are going to need for future enterprise jobs, and connecting the education and the training skills that are needed. I am also an Educators in VR member, like many of you, and I'm announcing today I've actually been asked to become Canada's Global Affairs Investment Champion for Virtual and Augmented Reality. So that's one of my new roles, and I'm looking forward to basically being the champion for Canada, which is kind of crazy. But just for the record, I went to school for hotel management. So you can literally do anything in this world and learn anything you can to do and go after your passions, right? And that's what I've my credentials and where I'm coming from. So let's talk about cloud learning. Next slide. So we're going to talk about cloud learning. Come back to slide. So learning, where are we today, and what does that mean? Next slide, please. So we all know where the classrooms have come from for the past 80 years, right from as early as 1940 and before. We've had these rows of desks. We've had kids in classrooms sitting the same way, learning in a linear thinking fashion, answering the same questions and having that right, the same types of years. So why do we need to change now? Next slide, please. So the reason why we need to change, and as you can see, I've dropped in a Smart, Sprint, which is Lines, UPS, they're all engaging in to train their staff and educate their staff about products, using that ticketing purposes. So enterprise is already doing this. So this obviously means we need to reflect our education into how are we going to change our education system and prepare the next generation to work in this type of environment. Next slide, please. Excuse me. So, we talk about all of these companies, and they're engaging in having robots and automation being implemented into their companies. And there's a big fear out there of that we're heading towards this robotic future. I'd like to recommend this book to everybody. It's something that I've been reading, and I picked up a lot of my ideas from this book, and a lot of the things that I'll be talking about today. And basically, when you think about it, what kind of job can be automated, it's any job that requires a yes or no answer, and then a machine can do it. So how do we prepare our education system and the next generation to be competitive with robots? Because everybody's afraid of their jobs being taken over by automation. And already in Amazon, they employ over 200,000 robots in Amazon today. That was a report released by PwC about 2 months ago. So it'll be very interesting to see, how many robots does Amazon employ, 1 year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now. So how do we remain competitive against the automated world? Next slide, please. And how do we teach our kids in the education system about how to become competitive? So this is something I want to talk about, is convergent thinking and moving over to divergent thinking. So convergent thinking is something that we've come from. It's a very yes or no answer learning system. You either have the right answer or the wrong answer. And a lot of the science and technology goes behind that, because it's straight, it's factual, it's it's one way or the other, and this is where robots will be able to take over. And I don't want to talk about it take over the world, but when things like this happen, there's obviously more opportunities to create more jobs and more and different jobs than we've ever. So we need to move over from convergent thinking to divergent thinking and problems that we have. And how do we change that mindset? So robots can't be divergent thinkers. They can't just. Next slide, please. So, how do we shape our humans into divergent thinkers? So that obviously requires an immense amount of creativity. Now, I, for one, personally, am not a creative person. When you ask, could I come up with a design for something? That's not really my personal superpower. But I do have a creative talent within inside of me that I can apply to other things, like applying how that technology comes together. And these are things that we need to start to think about. First of all, creating that creativity, also requiring the ability to adjust to circumstances and innovation. And everybody knows right now that the speed of innovation is getting faster and faster. And how do we adjust for innovation and additional scopes and all of these different things. So discovering solutions when they weren't there when they originally started. This is where the creativity starts to come in. And it's not about painting a picture, but it's about creating a new solution. Next slide, please. So, this comes to a term that I've learned about, and it's called humanics. And it's not well known yet, but I think this is going to be a really important term in our ecosystem, where the blend of humanity and digital and technology comes together. Humanics is the creative and mental flexibility to be able to adjust to the ecosystem and how things are happening out there and what we're building and how all the systems seem together. So you need to be able to understand both the technology and the data. And once again, I went to school for something completely unrelated than what I am today. I am personally not a coder. I do know and understand all the programming languages, and I understand the data, I understand the systems that are needed to be put together, whether it be Unity with a system that pulls in haptics or eye tracking, and I understand that. So that's a level of my personal humanics, of being able to understand that. And at the same time, we have to be able to communicate and stand on stage and speak to groups of people and go into social rooms and talk further and be socially responsible, morally and intellectually there. And this is going to take a piece of part of humanics within them to engage into this ecosystem. Next slide, please. So having humanics, how do we engage with our education system and teach humanics? Well, we need to introduce new literacies and understanding the technology. That's once there is humanics and engineering, we need to be able to understand that. So we need to teach that in schools. And maybe half of going into HTML and C# and students need to understand those of school, and they're part of a team working to develop something, then they need to be able to understand what JavaScript is. So understanding all of the technology that's being embedded into the back of our developments is really important. Understanding the data and the measurements of analytics is super important. Obviously, we're going to have eye tracking and all sorts of measurables of analytics that will take place in everything we do, from a math game on using augmented reality to a virtual experience where you're diving into a remote location or you're being tested on where you're looking. So those analytics and understanding what you're using this technology is really important. And of course, including elements of the arts and communication, and that comes back to the creativity. Next slide. These new literacies are where we need to go next. Tim, next slide, please. Implement into our education system. Now, I'm going to come back to the ability to be creative. And this is where we all create our own humanics, our own engagement, and our own personal creativity to build a persona for ourselves and hone in on our superpowers to become creative within an ecosystem. And Sir Ken Robinson said it himself in his TED Talk in 2016, that creativity is the process of having original ideas that have value. And when we all become internally creative about something that we're passionate about, we can actually build our own business for ourselves in the fact that we can sustain ourselves in the economy and contribute towards whether it's a social aspect or a business or anything to do with the economy. We can give back, and it's a creative part of ourselves. Next slide, please. So being creative and having these new skill sets and thinking differently takes a little bit of a higher order of mental skill sets. And entrepreneurship is one of the first things. It's the new gig economy that we're all a part of. We're all, whether you're doing your own thing, you obviously know an entrepreneur. Businesses are starting to hire smaller, unique, companies that specialize in certain things. And entrepreneurship skills, being able to hone in on your own personal superpowers and then turn that into a business for yourself, already you're an entrepreneur. So that's what this is going to take. Systems thinking, coming back to how do all of these things piece together? How do we use this technology, and this technology to produce an activation or to create a classroom where you will be able to engage those students into an experiential learning experience and have them engage, and understanding how all those systems come together. Cultural agility. This is an interesting one because I think this is very far from all of our minds. And I'm going to give you an experience that I had last night in the Educators in VR social experience. And right after we finished our panel last night, we all beamed into this different social space, and I was talking with some people, and who was on the panel with me came over and said, started to walk away, and I immediately saw somebody come over to him who was, it was funny because his avatar totally addressed his persona. And he started speaking. Carlos, engaged right in. And it was one of those things where I quickly did, oh yeah, you have people from Spain here, you have people from other countries. And it was that aha moment. We really are global. We really are multicultural all around the world, in so many different roles and coming from so many different places. Cultural agility is going to be really important for us to be able to come into these rooms and sit together, go into these social spaces and accept people for who they are, with their backgrounds, their experience. And this is something that I think start thinking on a higher level. So the critical thinking stage. This is really important. This is a skill set that we don't teach. Yes, apparently my sound is cutting out. Is everybody having problems hearing me? Can you do me a favor and tell me unhappy face if you can't hear me very well? Oh, that's bad. Okay. I'm just wondering whether I should jump out and come back in.
Just do a quick re-enter, Julie. Just
okay.
Settings and that should fix it.
Sorry, guys. Okay, hold on. Okay, I did a very quick enter. Can you hear me? Oh, can you hear me? Yes? Okay. All right, so let me know.
That's
throw up a unhappy. If you can hear me, okay. So coming back to unhappy faces. Shoot. I'm just wondering if I go with this. Okay, I'm gonna try and, I see happy faces, so I'm gonna keep talking if I see happy faces. If I see bad faces, then I'll stop talking. Can we go next slide, please? Okay, so coming back to critical thinking, this is where, how do we implement critical thinking and all of those skill sets into our education? Well, let's come back to STEAM: science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. This is where we are going to obviously use the same setup that we're using in our education systems now. We need to bring all of these messages forward. And if you can go to the next slide, please. I'd like to focus on one of the skill sets is soft skills. And this is where we start to build critical thinking and problem solving and using sciences to discover that. And I think sciences is a really, really important subject that we need to address more in schools. It's something that has not been taught to its abilities, and using this technology, VR and AR, to be able to explore and discover and use this technology in ways to build out those soft skills that everybody needs to have talents, to be able to come into these spaces and collaborate and start to discover in different ways how things operate. And these soft skills are a huge piece of education that is starting to slowly shift, but enterprise is really, really trying to figure out how to, where this talent is coming out of school. They're missing this skill set. So it's really important that we start to focus a lot of our education on these soft skills, so the students can come into these spaces and become successful. They can work and engage in this technology and be successful, especially with communication, collaboration. And as you can tell with educators in VR, collaborating on a global level is a really cool thing. You get a lot of stuff done. Next slide, please. So how do we learn that? Well, let's talk about online learning. 100% of all students will learn online today and in the future. And I don't think we have an argument there. I think everybody knows how connected we are, not preparing and educating them for that. Next slide. Okay. Can you? There's happy faces. I'm not sure why I'm cutting out so bad. Okay.
I don't know if it'll make it.
Okay. I feel like I don't want to.
Do you want to take your amplify off and then put it back on again? Let's try that.
Okay, I'm talking now. And I'm talking now. Can you hear me? Okay, I will try and do my best to keep going. So how do you steer education to support divergent thinking, humanics, new literacies, creativity, and a higher order of mental skills? And that's by accessing the cloud using XR technologies. Next slide, please. So, accessing learning, we use virtual and augmented reality to access that technology. Implementing VR and AR into the classrooms is the technology, and being able to use that technology and access platforms starting to be built is going to be really important. Next slide, please. So when do we use cloud learning? And this is a perception that a lot of people, especially teachers, think that they're by this technology. And oh, okay, sorry, you guys can't hear me. I'm gonna try and do something and re-enter. Okay, give me 2 seconds.
we could do that. So that's certainly an option, I think.
What happens to her slides if we reset the space?
Well, I mean, I know what slide we're on, so I can jump back to it.
Do we have to call it up again?
Do you want to try that?
What do you think? Should I do that?
Well, let's wait for Julie to come back and
Yeah.
see.
Yeah. So you tell me if you tell me, I'll go ahead and do it.
Right. Okay.
Okay, that needs
Julie, I was just having a quick word with Donna, and we can reset the space and jump everybody back in again, just to see if that fixes the problem if you want us to.
Okay, can you tell me if you can hear me right now? I actually moved over, and I don't know if there was a wall. Yeah, it's a long story, but I actually relocated myself, set my boundary really quickly. So I'm just going to keep going. If you can hear me, just, yeah, throw the love, okay? Okay, so when do we use cloud learning applications? Well, let's, and as I was saying, teachers are usually afraid of the fact that their jobs are going to be taken over, and parents don't like it because they think that students are going to be in headsets all day. But let's take a step back and let's put those students in headsets, and let's take them to an exploration where something is dangerous, where something is impossible, where something is counterproductive, expensive, or rare. Those things, if we start to think about how we're going to implement these technologies into our education, should be focused on these things only. Because to have face-to-face conversation with your students and engagement is still priority. The social aspect still needs to be there. But if you can take them somewhere that is dangerous and have them experience something standing on the side of a cliff or right in front of a man-eating live animal, or whether you're dealing with nuclear reactors or a heavy piece of machinery, anything that's dangerous, having them engage in this virtual space using this technology is obviously a very safe space, and they can practice, they can learn, they can immerse themselves into that dangerous location. Impossible. If there's something that's near impossible but could happen, we want to be able to put those students into that space, and diving into a human heart or body is pretty much impossible. But in virtual reality, we can do that. So we need to expose our students to this type of education. Counterproductive, and this is something that you don't really often think about, but the amount of materials that we use to train students, whether it be a welding, piece of welding, or something that's creating a material over and over again that becomes waste in our environment, it's counterproductive. So being able to come into these spaces and work on these things without wasting materials is really important. Expensive and rare, that goes right, to medical testing, studying cadavers and pigs, and they're very expensive. They're rare to come across. Dead bodies are rare to come across. Go figure, right? Using this technology to enhance that learning is one way that we can use. Please, I see some unhappy faces. I'm sorry if doing whatever I can do. Can you go to the next slide? Okay, so benefits of cloud learning. Obviously, access to real-world exploration. You can go anywhere. We're already here. We're all sitting in the same space. Experiencing beyond the classroom. Having students learn at their own pace. I think that's really important. Everybody knows that everybody works and learns very differently. And going back 80 plus years, they assumed everybody learned the same. This type of technology is going to change that. This is something and Hear me? I don't know what else to do, but I'll keep going. The collaboration and communication piece, that's going to be enhanced with group projects and being able to meet with a specialist who may just be the expert that you need to talk to. So having an individual learning plan, I think this is kind of one of those big things that would be so nice if I had my own personal plan. And I think everybody can agree that implementing that into an education in this day forward is one way to go. Next slide, please. Next slide, please, Tim. So I believe that cloud learning will have a marketplace where you will be able to access all of this content, and it will be a place where you can meet and pick out which subjects that you wish to have, online courses, accessibility to create ideas, being able to search things on the web and create and share. That type of marketplace will be accessible through cloud learning. I believe there will be a token system of value and credits, not just for the students, but for the teachers too. I'll talk in a minute about teachers, but I think that we'll start to build an exchange of ideas where the students will want to be credited for what they've done. And I think we're also going to have, whether it's enterprise or the education system, start to value what those students are doing inside the space. I believe corporate standards certifications are going to take place where we're going to have to match what enterprise is looking for, just like going back into the companies that are starting to establish training into their VR training into their workplace already. What are those certifications to be able to get to that point? Sustainability programs and recognition, I think this is going to be huge with corporations contributing back into the education system, and then as well as schools, how they're building that XR talent within the schools and what kind of sustainability responsibility is taking place. And then the ideas that the students generate through the marketplace will be sold in the bigger marketplace and the enterprise, and opening up that door for creativity from our students to be able to contribute back into the economy. Next slide, please.
Julie, can I just quickly
Yes.
ask the audience? I'm getting some reports that they can't see the slides. Can we just have some emojis, please, as to whether can you see a slide that says the cloud learning marketplace? If you can see that, put a happy face.
You see the cloud learning marketplace? Yep, we've got happy faces and love.
If you're not able to see that, because I've had a couple of people say they can't, just jump out of the space and re-enter back in again, and it should be okay. Okay, thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's okay. Can we do next slide, please?
Sure.
Yep, please. Okay, so the role of the teachers. Let's put. I believe that teachers need to become mentors. And I'm not taking away that job at all from teachers. I think the teachers right now are the most important people we have in education. They don't know this technology much more than the students do. The students actually probably know more than the teachers. So why not use those students to help you learn as educators? And I think, identifying students in what they're doing in your classrooms will help you build out how they can help with a whole team of people in the back end that are producing this. So, think about that in the classroom. Can you imagine giving a small group of students the role of tech team, and they're in charge of making sure all the technology for that class? And into the classrooms and having them help them. I think that accreditation of knowledge and experience for teachers is going to become really important too. To be able to stand up here and talk about a subject, you're going to have to know your stuff. You're going to have to know and have that projected voice of interest to keep kids engaged. And they're going to turn back and they're going to rate you on your knowledge base. And they're probably going to write a reference about you. And I think that's where it's going. It's going to be surprised that picky about who they talk to and who they're learning from. So don't be afraid to ask for tech help. Build the tech teams to have the students learn with you, please. Tim, next slide, please. So best practice and global standards. First of all, healthy mentality first. The first thing that I like, oh, can you go back one? Thanks. Oh, one more. Thank you. Healthy mentality, just making sure that you're doing all the things that you need to do to stay healthy in the mind, heart, and soul. Take out the technology, that's number one. The awareness of the analytics, we talked about that. Be aware of what you're being measured on, whether it's eye tracking or haptics, heart rates and biometrics and stuff like that, just being aware of that. The standards for business and education, this is something where I think that corporations need to contribute back into the ecosystem, and this is going to become a best practice of corporate responsibility, moving those enterprise standards into education to make sure that we discover the XR talent is ready for the business world. Hardware and software innovation, that's a whole topic on its own of just staying on top of which headsets are best, which platforms will give the best experiences, and within those experiences, the UI, the user experience, will be addressed as to what are those best practices for those user experiences. Quality checks with UI and networks, addressing 5G just quickly. A lot of people have questions on 5G. We're about to build these sectors where things will be 100 times faster. We'll start to carry phones that will produce more content at such a fast pace. How do we manage that? And those best practices of dealing with all of that are going to be really important. And then social and sustainable responsibility. So just being able to, be contributing back into the global, the world, and using this technology in the best ways possible to educate our students. So, putting this all together, cloud learning will be out there. It's going to be out there in the ecosystem. How we access it, it will be through marketplaces that will host the best practices and global standards. And how we'll implement that into the classrooms will be up to the teachers. And that's why you're all here this week. And, there's so much to learn. There's so many different ways of think you need to think, and it will be up to our educators to kind of change the way that we learn, change the way that you teach, and being able to implement some of these pieces of the classrooms to help change that will build our next generations to be sustainable in a future that they'll be able to have for themselves. So. One more slide, Tim. So, yes, like one of the last slides, I just wanted to let him know for Learning podcast this week. Daniel and Laurel were one of my first podcast guests, and I'm going to be focused on micro-learning. Micro-learning are brief little stints of information, and I'm doing recordings of up to 20 minutes. So I would love everybody to follow me. If we get the advanced slide, you can see what the logo is. Tim, I don't know if you can get to podcast, and yeah, that's basically So we
All
have
right,
the XR for Business podcast,
Yeah.
and then I started the XR for Learning podcast. So this is a great way
Wonderful.
to just keep on learning. So
Wonderful.
Thank you very
All
much,
right.
everybody.
Please, big hearts and big loves, big applause for Julie Smithson here about cloud learning. And can I just say what a professional you are to continue despite the audio. Hats off to you. I don't know how I would have coped, and I would like to apologize. I thought it might be a good idea to ask one person to give you unhappy faces indicate audio issues. I didn't realize it would become a thing and you would be looking at all these unhappy faces. I apologize for that. We won't be doing that again. But absolutely professional. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Right. I have a question, and we'll see if, I'll see if your audio holds up. So just recap for me, if you can, in one sentence, if it's possible. Cloud learning is, how would you describe it in one sentence?
Cloud learning will be through access to content and the creation tools to be able to build and trade and learn about all the different things in the world and have that accessibility.
So let me see if I understand. You're building a kind of a marketplace where it's a one-stop shop for educators or anybody?
So I didn't go deep into what Metaverse is doing, but that is something that we're doing. I kept the conversation very high level. Metaverse is working on building a 3D web marketplace, just as I described. And, we've been working hard in the ecosystem to build all of our connections and that sort of thing. And this is the future. This is how
Wonderful, because
we're going to want the students to
because I think
learn from.
for educators like myself, I mean, I'm working here with educators in VR, but I'm also teaching at college in Wales with refugees and migrant workers and young students looking for, what am I going to do with the rest of my life and how am I going to learn and stay competitive? To have content and a platform that's accessible, ready to go for the educators as well as for the students. The more educational content we could get, the more educational tools we can get, and to monetize it, hats off and applause for that. I like the sound of that a lot.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. So, lovely. Let's see if we have any questions. I have questions, but let's see if the room has any questions. Let's open a host panel. So, think about if you have a question, and if you do, please use the raise hand button. Any questions about XR podcast, XR for business, cloud learning, accelerated learning, the VRARA, anything about Julie and her work? Have a think. All right, while you're thinking, I'm going to ask another question here, Julie. So when can we expect, you're talking about this coming, is it coming soon? Is it almost just around the corner, or is it down the line a bit?
So we're building things in the back end. We're expecting to launch at CES in 2021. Things are already underway of being able to build this, and I think everybody can agree that the 3D web access is first and foremost priority. Instead of having to open all these different apps. So what we're building.
WebXR, everybody. Long live WebXR.
So our platform will actually host all of the apps that are out there, so that you won't have to jump back in and out. And
that's amazing. Oh, you dropped out again.
We have the platform, and it's just now scaling
it.
Consumption side.
Fantastic. Well, hey, Julie, here's a question for you. Do you need any early beta testers? Do you need any testers? Can we hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge? Can we test for you? Can we test for you?
Yes, absolutely.
All right, when you're ready, let us know, because we have a whole community of people who will give you really good, honest feedback to help you make your stuff better, okay?
Well, this would be the first place I would come to get that measured. Absolutely.
Superb.
Absolutely.
Okay, so
right.
again, open to the floor. Any questions here? We got any questions? How is everybody doing? Give me some love if you're doing okay. If you're enjoying the talks, if you're enjoying the speakers.
I have to do my selfie. So
selfie
Daniel and Tim, if you want to come in here, I have to do it.
I'll jump in with you.
So, yep.
All right,
Tim
can I jump in with you?
Yeah.
You gonna turn around for it, or can you take front facing?
Ready? Well.
Okay, here we go.
Hold on. There we go. Nope.
No?
There we go.
Okay.
I just learned how to do the thumbs up.
The thumbs up, yeah, you got to grip both grips. So
Yep,
you can take that
got
selfie?
it. Yes. Ready?
All right.
1, 2, 3.
Emojis, everybody. Emojis.
That's great. That's great. I'll share it on social media later. Thank you so much,
Wonderful.
everybody, for having me.
Thank you so much. Wonderful. Okay. So it's about 1:45 now. Good times there. Listen, Tim, thank you very much. JW was here earlier. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We live streamed this, by the way. Julie, just heads up, that was live streamed to YouTube, so that'll be available for you.
Great.
And
Great.
what do we got coming next? Anybody know what's next? Let me have a look at the schedule quickly. Here we go.
Well, actually, it's a diversity talk next.
Oh, Tim, over to you, my friend. Tell us about it. Tell us about it.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So next up is going
Come on
to
up,
be.
come on up.
Oh, I want to come up here. Okay.
Yeah.
Hey everyone. Right. So the next talk is going to be Panos or Panagiotis Kourtesis, and he's going to be talking about VR research methods for cognitive neuroscience and neuropsychology, and it's amazing. I've actually listened to this presentation a couple of times because I'm one of the track leads with Anna, and it's an amazing presentation, really, really interesting, and guys, you've got to go to it. It's fascinating.
We got Panos here. We're going to give him another 15 minutes just to chill and relax, but isn't that amazing, the range of talks we have here, from cloud learning to Panos Kourtesis with his talk there, to elderly care. The range of speakers we have is just, I don't know where you get that. I don't know where you get that. And everybody sat at home, right? I'm sat on my office chair. You're sat on, who's sat in the office? Give me some hearts if you're in the office somewhere. Any hearts? Okay, good. Give me some claps if you're at home. Who's at home right now? Fantastic. Is anybody outdoors doing this? Give me some smileys. Anybody outdoors? Oh, we have some claps from somebody outdoors.
Awesome.
Look at that. That's fantastic.
That's awesome.
That's brilliant. And now, is anybody sat in their car anywhere? Give me some crazy faces. Anybody in the car trying to pick up this on
Not
the fly
driving,
somewhere?
No,
not
no
driving.
driving.
Well, with maybe.
No, we work within the law.
Yes,
We
please.
got Shannon Orr. Are you actually in the car somewhere? Sat in the car doing this?
I want to know what kind of Wi-Fi signal she gets if she's doing that.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Wonderful. Cool. All right. Well, Panos, you're up next, but give yourself a bit of time. There's no stress. Everybody, if you need a quick drink, refresh, run to the toilet, whatever, we'll be right back. You can stay, of course, as well. Don't run away. Come back. That's not what I'm saying. But I know these sessions can get long, and especially if you're in a headset, you might need a couple of minutes. Give us some time to check the slides as well, Panos. You good with that? Yeah?
Yeah, we can do that.
Panos, you need to, click your megaphone on, please, and volume up. That will help. Tim, do you want to help Panos there?
Okay.
Yep.
I think I'm fine now.
Yeah, we should.
Oh, yeah, I can hear you now. Okay, all right, good. So, are you good
We
with
are
the
the dream
slides,
tree.
Tim?
Sorry?
Yeah, excellent. Are you good with Panos' slides?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. We're good to
Fantastic.
go.
Ooh.
We're ready for when everyone comes back.
Wonderful. Okay, well then mingle and chat amongst yourselves. I'm going to jump out. I'll be back in a bit. Wonderful, guys.
Okay. See you
And
later.
thank you, Julie. Everybody, big
Yes,
love
thank
to
you,
Julie.
Julie.
Big love to Julie. Thank you.
Thanks very much,
All right.
everybody.
All right. See you soon, right? All right. All right. See you later, guys.
See you later.
See you.
Bye, everyone.
Right. Okay. So, just turn myself off megaphone. Right, Anna, do you want to cut and paste the link in?
I have
I can do
already
that.
done that.
But if I thought Panos would handle it. Yeah, but I can do that.
No, it's
Okay.
fine. Panos has got it.
Okay.
Do you want to just click through just to make sure it's okay?
Okay, seems okay.
It's got a slight lag on it, but
Yeah.
I'm wondering whether just to reset the room after the problems we had from the last session. What do you think?
Okay,
Can
let's
you
go
try
for it.
again, Panos?
Yep. Now,
Yeah.
Okay.
and back.
There's 3 minutes at least latency. 3 seconds, sorry. 3 seconds, sorry, yeah. 3 seconds latency, yeah.
Latency on it. But
For me, it's like 3 seconds, yeah.
I think I should be fine.
Okay.
Do you think, Tim, we should ask Donna to reset the room?
Well, I'm just, I was talking to Donna earlier on, and we were saying that really we ought to reset almost after every speaker, or after every couple of speakers, because it does create a cache memory problem with old space. Especially, you know, presentations are quite, you know, chunky.
Okay, let's do that. We have some time.
Okay, let me message
You're
Donna.
okay if I do it now?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, please, Donna, if you wouldn't mind.
I don't mind at all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Donna.
Okay, let's check the latency now. Can you see everything okay?
Yeah, slide
Yeah.
2, yeah.
Okay, next. Now,
That was quick.
Yeah, it's a little bit
Okay.
better, yeah.
Better.
Yeah, it's better, yeah.
1 to 2 seconds, okay. Yeah, okay, can work with that.
That's good. That makes sense.
We should be waiting for at least another 6 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll be back in just a second, okay?
Okay.
Yeah. Have you set your microphone on, Panos?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Something that's dangerous that you're teaching about. If it's something that is like I want to teach them about the bottom of the ocean. You know, it were impossible. That too. Or like when teaching about freaking like that's dangerous. That's counterproductive. You know, using the same materials or whatever. Like that's harming our environment. Like chemistry. You can do it in here. Right? And expensive or rare, you know, using something that could be an expensive piece of equipment. So I'm like, that's a really great way to think of it, you know. Also, this is a lot of soft skills, you know.
Okay, beautiful.
You can bring home breakfast. actually. No.
I'm trying to see what's the best position.
We did right.
I must be the only person moving around all the time. Trying so hard to understand.
See what the acoustics are like there.
Yeah, I haven't muted the audience, so yeah, we can hear each other for the time being.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Not until a couple of minutes past.
Let me send a message.
Okay, I'm back.
Okay.
We've got a 2-minute notification.
Just sent it out.
Oh, you just sent that?
Yeah.
Well done.
Well, just in case someone has forgotten, that's to be here.
You know that so the next session's after this at 4, but there's a tribute to Chris Long in between.
Yeah, but it's in Engage, yeah?
Yeah, it's an Engage.
It's,
I don't know if
yeah.
you mentioned that at the end.
Yeah, check the program. I saw that, yeah. Got it, Panos.
Hi, Serenity.
Yeah.
All right, we just wrapped in the other room, so we're good.
Sure.
There.
How's it going, Tim? All good?
Yeah, all okay.
Lovely. Okay.
Yeah,
All with you?
Just waiting for the start.
Yeah, you got it.
Are we good to go?
Yeah, shall we start now?
Yeah. Okay. I'll step back and keep out your way.
Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is... Shall I? Hello. Hello, everybody. My name is Anna Xigu. I and Tim host the diversity track in this conference. I would like to present you Panagiotis Kourtesis. He actually represents the intersection between experimental psychology, cognitive neuroscience, and virtual reality. Panagiotis is a PhD candidate and researcher in experimental psychology and cognitive neuroscience at the University of Edinburgh, in collaboration with the University Suor Ursula Benincasa of Naples in Italy. He affiliates with the Human Cognitive Neuroscience Research Team of the Department of Psychology and the Interdisciplinary Research Center Scienza Nuova. He is a certified virtual reality software developer VR specialist and XR workshops coordinator at the UCreate studio at the University of Edinburgh, and his current research interests include virtual reality neuroscience and neuropsychology, virtual reality rehabilitation and therapy, cyber psychology, human-computer interaction, brain-computer interaction, telemedicine, and VR research methods. So it's to you, Panos. Today he's going to give a presentation in terms of how we can use assessment for different neurodiverse populations using virtual reality. So it's to you, Panos. Thank you.
Hi, guys. As Anna said, I'm going to present VR research methods for assessment and neuro rehabilitation by implementing VR, of course. So let's move on. So first of all, what VR brings to psychology. So what we can do with that. First of all, automates the whole assessment or rehabilitation session. That means that we don't have any human biases by that. Also, give us full control on the environment. We may modify and adjust the environment in order to serve our research aims or clinical aims. That means that we can conduct experiments or therapy sessions that otherwise wouldn't be feasible in the real world or with the traditional methods. For example, the well-known milligrams experiment in the real world is totally unethical, but in VR world we may have like a new version of it in order to study memory or social cognition, without being unethical, of course. And the most important that the virtual reality brings is the ecological validity. Ecological validity is actually the level of similarity between the testing, the actual testing, and the real, the everyday life performance and cognition. So when our assessment or training is more close to the real world and the real life tasks, then we have a better prediction of everyday performance, either cognitive or behavioral. However, we have several problems that we may solve by using VR. The first of all is the replicability crisis. That means that by using VR, because everything is standardized and structured, other researchers or clinicians may replicate our study or our training session in order to replicate the results, etc. And of course, we can have telemedicine, so we don't need the patient or the participant to be physically in presence, because we can make we can assess or have the training session in distance. This is telemedicine. And as I said before, the prediction of cognitive and behavioral performance. Okay, yeah. But we have some problems in front of us that we need to resolve because it's not just a hype. Okay, we have this new technology, we are going to implement it everywhere and we are going to be successful. We need to be extremely meticulous and cautious. So, and the main problem is VR sickness or cyber sickness. So all this adverse symptomatology of course makes the whole experience unpleasant, but also affects the psychological data that we collect. It used to be a problem also, the cost of the headsets, of the VR headsets. Right now we have headsets like the Oculus Quest that you can see, and that is, I would say, cost effective, if not cheap. The other problem is the cost, and still it is a problem, the cost of the VR software. So an institution or a hospital, a clinic, has to rely to other third parties in order to develop our software, and the cost is quite high. It varies from £5,000 or 6,000 euros to £50,000 or euros. So for some people or some institutions, this is not an affordable solution. So how we are going to solve these problems? First of all, for the VR sickness, etc., we need to have technological competency in virtual reality, in the technology. Regarding the software, we need to have standardized VR software evaluation tools in order to evaluate our software that is appropriate for implementation. And the most important about the software development problem, we need to have software development skills, even basic skills, in order to not rely to third parties, or at least to have better prices from them when we deliver a ready product. So let's see first of all the cyber sickness symptoms. So the main symptoms are nausea, dizziness, disorientation, fatigue, and disability. And what they may cause is they reduce the overall cognitive performance of the individual. They increase the temperature or the body temp and also the heart rate, and also the brain activity of certain regions, the occipital lobe and the temporal lobe especially, and the frontal lobes as well, and the connectivity between them. So that means that for the first one, that our neuropsychological or assessment data are compromised. For body imaging data, the second, also compromised. And for brain imaging data, also compromised if we have the presence of cyber sickness. So we performed a technological systematic review in order to identify the technical reasons of having cyber sickness. So we found that the main reason is a VR headset. So there are some minimum hardware criteria that we need to check. Okay, so the reason is like the low resolution per eye, refresh rate, or a low field of view. The other thing is the software, the VR software. So if this VR software doesn't contain ergonomic interactions or navigation system, then the participants may suffer from cyber sickness. And the last one is the linear and angular acceleration. So you will have in a VR experience things like a high-speed car that the participant is passenger. This is a linear acceleration may cause cyber sickness. Or the angular accelerations, like the ones that we have in roller coasters, things like that. So we need to avoid this kind of things in our software. Okay, and these are the minimum specs. We need a resolution 960 times 1080 per eye, and the refresh rate has to be at least 75 Hz. I will personally even raise it to 90 if it is possible. The field of view should be at least 110 degrees. And the type of display, of course, has to be a contemporary one, to be LCD or OLED. And lastly, the motion tracking has to be adequately fast, of course, and should be capable of capturing 360 degrees. This is like a summary table of the minimum specs. And then we move on to the VR software. Okay, so what kind of characteristics we need to have, like a certain level of immersion. Has to be pleasant, of course, to the participant or the patient. And the quality of graphics and sound should be adequately good. And of course, the sound has to be specialized in order to have this 360 experience. And also the hardware, as we said, the headset and the peripherals should be appropriate. So we move on to the game mechanics. As we said, we need a good navigation system like a teleportation, and not, for example, using an express controller in order to navigate the environment. And also the physical movement, like walking around, to be available. And also we need naturalistic interactions and ergonomic. Naturalistic in order to help non-gamers to adapt fast and learn the controls, and ergonomic in order to avoid the VR sickness. So an ergonomic picking and holding items, or use the items, or have like two-handed interaction. But there is another thing, the in-game assistance. The in-game assistance helps to reduce confusion, and when we have reduced confusion, we have reduced also the intensity of VR sickness. So we need to offer comprehensive and explicit tutorials which are helpful and of adequate duration. And more on top of that, we need to have helpful in-game instruction prompts like arrows, table signs, or non-player characters, which help the participant or the patient to guide them what they should do next. And of course, we need to assess if there is the intensity of the VR sickness symptoms. And as I said, these are the main symptomatology. So, and here is like the table with the minimum software characteristics. So, but what happens, our second study was like, we had to develop a VR software evaluation tool, because so far we have only questionnaires that assess the VR sickness symptomatology, but not the quality of the software. So we developed the virtual reality neuroscience questionnaire, and we validated. And the advantages of this questionnaire is that it measures both software quality and VR sickness symptomatology. The disadvantage is because we wanted to have it to be really quick, administration-wise, it doesn't have an assessment of every symptom of VR sickness. An alternative is the simulator sickness questionnaire and its variants. The advantage is that they do have an assessment of every symptom, but they don't evaluate the software quality. So what we can have with the VRNQ, so we may have like feedback during the development phase, because we have both qualitative and quantitative data. So we can use it also for usability and user experience studies. The administration is really fast. And you can administer just a section of this questionnaire or the whole thing. And of course, to report, especially in scientific articles, the VR software quality and the intensity of the VR sickness. So, and also here we have some cutoff scores for that, because we need to achieve, for example, for a long session around 15 to 70 minutes, and that is essential for either VR therapy or VR assessment. We need to meet at least the parsimonious criteria of the VRNQ. So, okay, we have a standardized tool, and now the most important is we need to acquire some VR software development skills. And so the first thing that we need to do is, of course, to conduct a literature review on the theoretical framework, and to see if there are other 3D or VR applications relevant to what we want to do. Oh. Sorry. Oh.
You okay, Panos?
I need some help with the slides because the controller is not responding anymore. So,
okay,
could you please?
Do you want me to change?
Yes, please. The next one, please.
Do you want to do that, Anna? Or?
Yeah, we'll do it, yeah. Okay.
So first of all, we need to find our target platform, so which headset we should use, and this depends also on the peripherals that we want to use, and this changes proportional to the research aims or the therapy aims. And of course, the next step is which game engine we should use. Both Unity and Unreal are great engines, and you may use it to develop your VR software. Personally, I prefer Unity because I'm more comfortable with the C# programming language. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay.
Yeah, just
okay. So to acquire the technical skills and knowledge, you can do it easily by attending online courses like on Coursera or Udemy and SoloLearn. For programming, to acquire programming skills and development either on Unity or on Unreal, whatever you prefer. Next, please. Okay, so we start by writing the scenario and the storyline of our VR assessment or therapy. So we need to be as explicit as possible, even the small details like the podium is over there, the seats are over there, the colors, etc., and the details of the environment in general. And of course, the most important is the scoring criteria, because our data depends on that. Next, please. Okay, so I'm going to go really fast through the next slides. So in general, you don't need to be the best programmer. Both Unity and Unreal, they offer software development kits, SDKs that might help you. One of the most useful that I have found is a virtual reality toolkit, but you can see and find other alternatives similar to that. Next, please. So, okay, next we can skip that.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Also for the graphics, there are free 3D objects and environments that you may download, or if not free, you may find them for a low cost. Next, please. So yes, the same for the audio. All the spatializers in order to have 360 audio are free, and you may download them. Yes. Next, please. And the same applies to the 3D characters. You may download 3D characters from Morph3D and Mixamo, and all the animations, body or facial animations, you may have them either for free or for a low cost. Next, please. So, okay, here we are. So, why we need to be extremely careful during the VR software development? Besides avoiding the cyber sickness symptomatology, we need to achieve these illusions. The placement illusion that relies on both graphics, the quality of the graphics and the sound. The placement illusion is that the environment looks real. And then we have the plausibility illusion. It is an illusion that is, okay, it is plausible that I am in this realistic environment, and this depends on how I interact with the environment. That means that the environment corresponds, reacts to my actions. And of course, and not least, is embodiment illusion. So the VR player, the avatar, like here, to correspond to my physical movements. And last, especially for rehabilitation, or a long assessment session, the temporal illusion. So the VR time actually is the actual time. So, and you can have that by using a VR watch or by animating environmental cues like the sky, the sun, and the lighting of the area. Next, please, Anna.
Yeah.
So, okay, so we have achieved the technological competence in VR. We have a standardized VR software tool, and we have acquired software development skills. And what we can achieve now, because we conducted another experiment, and where we compared the VR tools with the traditional methods, mainly paper pencil methods. Next slide, please, Anna. Okay. So as I said before, we don't have human bias, automated procedure, impeccable precision, especially for timing, absolute control on the test environment, and ecological validity. Next, please. So, in comparison with the traditional methods, the VR had like a shorter administration time, significantly shorter administration time. All the participants, the majority of the participants, reported that the VR was a far more pleasant testing experience than the traditional methods. And of course, for them was substantially more ecological valid. And that means that we have better predictions of their everyday performance and better insights on everyday conditions that allow us to contribute to the theoretical framework of these cognitive functions. Next, please. So here is a bibliography that the studies include all the information that I was talking about. So next, please, about my contact details. Okay, one back.
Yeah.
Yep, here are my contact details. I'm going to share the slides, so please contact me there, and I'm going to send you the slides directly to you. So, questions, please. Anna, if you can.
Thank you very much, Panos. A very useful, fabulous presentation. I'm going to unmute all now, and let's raise the hands. Mix. Okay, so you can raise your hand so we can sort out which one has a question for Panos. Is there anyone who's having a question for Panos? Okay. So,
quite a few questions.
yeah.
So the questionnaire didn't include anything about immersion. Was that a conscious choice, or was it just to keep the questionnaire short?
Yes, exactly. The intention was to keep it short. So there are other questionnaires which are explicit about the level of the experience immersion. I think it's called something like the presence questionnaire.
Yeah, there are a couple, yes. Yeah. I was just curious, because we often do that. Yeah.
And then, is it Michael who's got another question? Yeah, Michael, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me as well?
Yeah, we can, okay. Go ahead, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you said that we need a certain amount of field of view to avoid motion sickness, but and you said that it ideally should be 110 or more degrees field of view. But would you expect that? So I would expect when we increase the field of view further, that at some point it will even get worse, because especially in the periphery of the retina of our eyes, we have lots of sensors which are sensitive to motion, especially in the peripheral vision. And so I would expect with, for example, 180 degrees field of view that it would easier get motion sick. what you would
Yep.
expect?
It is this difference between motion sickness and VR sickness. They have actually the same symptoms, but they vary in intensity and also the causes. So motion sickness is mainly because of the linear or angular accelerations, and that's why when we have linear accelerations, it helps to have reduced peripheral vision, so reduce the field of view, in order to reduce the motion sickness. But in VR, we need an adequate level of field of view. That means, of course, that we don't have any angular or linear accelerations inside the software, of course. And the greater field of view actually and the studies, and that's why all now the hardware development companies, they develop the new hardware with even greater field of view, because we have seen that drops the intensity of the VR sickness.
Oh, interesting. I expected the other way around. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you,
Very, very good
Panos.
question.
Thank you, Panos. So, Heather, are you ready to go?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes, of course, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, Panos. I really enjoyed this presentation. I especially like the validity of your instrument, but I was wondering if you'd like to comment on what research you have planned after this point. What's your future research?
Okay, very interesting. So now what I would like to do is two things. The first thing is to create something for neurorehabilitation purposes. And the other thing is that I want to integrate more sensory modalities and also neuroscientific methods compatible with VR, like EEG and eye tracking. So these are my intentions for the future.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Panos. And now it's Ben. Ben, can you hear us? Hello, Ben. I can hear Ben.
Yeah, choose whiz.
There is a Ben. Yeah. Yeah, okay.
Потому что нужен интернет быстро для этого.
Okay, let's move on to another speaker, to Eric. Eric, would you like to ask a question?
Hello there, can you hear me?
Hello. Yeah. Yes, we can hear you.
Hi Panos, thanks for the presentation.
You're welcome, thank you.
I was wondering if we have any way or ideas for correlating cyber sicknesses to other psychological and physical impairments. So is there a correlation, I would imagine, between people who get cyber sick easily and people with get sickness in a boat or a car more easily? And also, is there a correlation between people who get cyber sickness more and people who, for example, have certain kind of phobias and they see those things or other psychological things inside of VR space?
We know that the people who are susceptible either to vertigo or motion sickness, they are not equally, susceptible to VR sickness as well. For example, we have these people with vestibular impairment, then they tend to have the same VR sickness symptomatology in VR. And of course, the vulnerable people like, patients with TBI, traumatic brain injuries or acquired brain injuries, we need to be extra careful with this kind of individuals in order to avoid inducing VR sickness to them. Have I missed a part of your question? Sorry. Can you hear me?
I can't hear either. Eric is no longer on the list, on the hand raises list, so the participation list. I can't see him anymore. Okay, another question from Kat.
Yeah, I think Eric dropped out.
I just wanted to know if you could go back to the slide with the contact info, because it was only up for like 5 seconds and I didn't get a chance to write anything down.
Okay. Just before you do that, Eric is here. Eric, you might need to free up your microphone. Let me see if I can do that for you, Eric. Can you raise your hand? Yes, I've got you. And you should have a microphone as well. Do you want to ask? Sorry, do you want to ask your question again? Or
no, I think he got it. Actually, I'm sorry.
Okay, sorry, my mistake. My mistake. Over to you, Anna.
Thanks for checking.
Yep.
Okay, so Kat's turn. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there it is. Thanks. Can you just leave it up for a second? I'm a slow typer.
Yeah, sure, I'll leave it.
That was the only thing. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
So I think, there are no more questions. Actually, I have a question for Panos if we have time. Yeah, I think we've got like a few minutes. So Panos, I'd like to know which cognitive functions does the VR-EAL assess, and with which populations you're going to use it, or we can use it already.
Okay, so as I call it, VREAL, assesses prospective memory, episodic memory, visual attention, visuospatial attention, auditory binaural attention, and cognitive functions such as planning and multitasking. And we have already validated in adults, in healthy adults, but the VREAL can be either use the whole storyline, the whole scenario, or just a specific task of it. So we can use it in individuals with autism spectrum disorder, in elderly with mild cognitive impairments, or in the early stages of dementia. And to be honest, any patients group that they may have either memory, attention, or executive functions problems, and they don't have any mobility impairment, like moving their hands. So this is the only restriction that we have, that you need to use the hand controllers.
Okay, so from your reply, it means that it's an assessment that can be used like across any age or any kind of cognitive function or neurodiversity population. Summarizing what you said in a way, yeah? Okay.
Yes, exactly, and not the whole thing. Just you may want to assess just a specific cognitive function, so you may have just this specific task.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Panos. Thank you. Any more questions?
You're very, very welcome. I have a request. So first of all, I would like to thank Tim and Tana and Donna and all the people of Educators in VR. Guys, you are excellent. The whole thing is amazing. I really enjoyed that, and thank you for all your help and assistance. And the last thing is, because now I don't have a controller, Anna, I would like my selfie. Could you have the selfie for me, please? Because I don't have the right controller at the moment.
Okay, do you want me to take a photo of you?
Yeah.
Yeah?
No, the selfie of everybody, yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'm coming over here. Okay. Oh, what's this problem with teleporting?
Let us know.
I'm stuck somewhere. near the screen. Well, just bear with me just a second. Okay. I just can't. I I'm stuck. I don't know, Tim. Can you do this for me? Because I don't think I can do even using escape twice. I can do this. Tim, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. You can.
Yeah. Okay. Can you do the selfie? Yeah. Yeah. Because I seem to be stuck. No matter if I press escape twice.
What you
Yeah.
do is to reset and come out of the